Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing on this last day of the holiday weekend? I am your host, Mr. BoomStick XL, and this is the new episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special. Of course, my co-host with the co-most here today is the receipt keeper himself, Crispy Bomb. How you feeling, brother? Welcome back, dude.
Feeling good. I had a great game last night, and I'm ready to talk about these once again people running with BS, and I'll leave it at that.
Oh man, yeah. Again, folks, we have a couple of big pointed topics we're going to get into. The two I want to start off with is, of course, the running narrative that Xbox was pulling their wares off of the shelves of Walmart and Target. And if you did not hear about this, folks, I'm actually that you must have did the right thing and taken a break from social media, because it was once again another weekend, Crispy, where someone from Microsoft, and more specifically Xbox, had to respond to a rumor running around by the trolls of the interwebs. And of course, we're going to get into that story. And both stories we're going to cover today are from Windows Central. I have already added them to the show notes if you want to check them out. One is definitely by Jez Corden, but the other one I'm not sure. I have to see the actual author, but they have been both added to the show notes because obviously we want to help promote both of the articles. But Crispy, let's just get right into it. Now, again, this is an article. This was written by Michael Hugland of WindowsCentral.com, and it goes on to say in the header, no, Target and Walmart are not removing Xbox products from their stores as Xbox misinformation reaches new levels. Folks, again, if you did not, if you weren't privy to the conversation that we're about to have over the weekend, it was reported by Shinobi602, who I talk very highly about. I like him a lot. He's a great poster on X. He, provides a lot of big information. But him, along with many others, and I don't want to, we're not throwing anybody under the bus, folks. We're just we got to put the names out there of who reported this. That there were some pictures that were being shared around by posters on X. Some of them were from people that don't have channels. They were just, hey, listen, I was at my local Walmart and I didn't notice, but now I did. There's no Xbox games. And then, of course, it's the picture that Shinobi602 was sharing that even some of the bigger publications actually reported on. And you know what's interesting? Shout out to Colt Eastwood, who did a little bit of digging. The picture in question that was being shared, Crispy Bomb, was from 2023. The last time I checked, and I'm no mathematician, it's been 2 years since that picture was taken and posted on Reddit. We're in 2025. As a matter of fact, we are two shakes of a stick from moving into 2026. So, yeah, I got to say, and again, I don't think I have to say it, but I'm going to say it. If you are going to use a picture that's being shared on Reddit, you might want to do a little bit of homework to see when and where that picture was posted and taken and what year it was taken in, because it kind of makes you look a little silly. Now, granted, again, we're not, council warring here, but MBG did a video about Xbox pulling the wares off of the shelves. Dreamcast guy once again, reconfirmed, or should I say reconfirmed that Xbox was dead. And these are characters that we know are going to do these things for clicks. And it's their shtick, ladies and gentlemen. It's what they do. So what we're going to do today is read a little bit from the article and kind of maybe reaffirm the Xbox tax. And I know someone is, already, with potentially with a virtual tomato in hand, but folks, I don't know how else to put it. Like, I mean, we talked about this last week, Crispy. The hate on this brand is on a level that I don't think I've ever seen. And I've been gaming a super long time. Like, you can say whatever you want about Sega and them going, leaving the hardware business. You can say what you want about Atari or any of the defunct, publishers. And you can even have, questions and theories and even some, pointed thoughts about what Sony has done or what they haven't done for first party, or what Nintendo did, changing what $80 games look like, and the potential of, the entire industry moving with Nintendo's first $80 game. And you wouldn't be wrong, folks. There are a lot of questions and conversations in everything I just said. But what is interesting to me, and I want you to walk with me on this, folks. I want to paint a picture. Now, look, I'm considered an Xbot, right? And that's fine. Xbox is my platform of choice, and I don't make any qualms for it. I love everything about it. I love the achievement system. I love having my friends list as stout as it is. I like first party. I love Game Pass, despite me pushing back on an increase of $10. The controller is the best in the business. Quick Resume is still one of the biggest and best, additives to gaming this generation than anything before it. But I just want to focus your attention, ladies and gentlemen, on 2025, just the year itself. So if we take the big three and you just put them on the pedestals, at the end of the year, it is going to be Xbox that reigns supreme on many levels. And this isn't a console war rhetoric narrative. This isn't me, trying to prop up the $4 trillion company. This is just hashtag facts, Crispy. And the truth of the matter is very simple, is we have seen a year for first party games unlike anything that we have seen before it. 2025, when the year is done, when November has gone and passed and Call of Duty Black Ops 7 is out, Xbox would have put out almost a dozen games from first party that they have been a part of, whether it be first party Xbox game studios or studios they've worked with that they've invested in, and it has become considered a second party release, like Ninja Gaiden 4. When you look, and again, this is no shade towards Nintendo, but even Nintendo's first party has been light. They have a few games coming out. I'm buying every one of them. Donkey Kong is still up there in my top 5 of the year. Obviously Mario Kart World, not as great as I was hoping it would be when you compare it to something like Sonic Racing Worlds. I actually like Sonic better. But if we just use Xbox and PlayStation as the stopgaps for this conversation, Crispy, it's clear as day who the winner of 2025 is going to be. And if all that you are going to bring to the table is console sales, then of course they have sold a lot of consoles and they continue to sell a lot of consoles. But you know what they don't have a lot of? Innovation. It's very PlayStation. They're not doing anything new, meaning that Xbox this week has 2 pieces of OEM Xbox branded handhelds releasing. They also have, and I want to shout out Stallion 83. That's Mr. Millionaire. And I don't mean that in money. I mean that he's the first dude to hit 1 million gamer score. I follow him. I don't know if he follows me yet. Stallion, if you're listening, brother, hit that follow button for me. That'd be really cool. But he says this in a tweet, and I think that it is so pointed, it's so simplistic, but it has so much weight to it that it really does, I think, explain the year that we're talking about, Crispy. And it says, Xbox over the next month, but Xbox is dead. Cut the BS. And that means you have Keeper releasing later this week, Ninja Gaiden 4, The Outer Worlds 2, and Black Ops 7. Now, if you really want to get pointed, if you really want to be a D, you could take this block of games that are coming out over the course of the next 45 days from start to finish, not even 2 months, 45 days, give or take. And you can say that Xbox Game Studios will have put out more games in 45 days than PlayStation has put out in 2 years. Think about that for a second. But somehow, some way, Crispy, Xbox is dying. Now, of course, I want to focus your attention, ladies and gentlemen, to what happened this week. And I want to continue reading from the article, again, written by Michael Hugland of WindowsCentral.com. And it goes on to say this in the subcategory: one thing after another, Microsoft is forced to respond time and time again on ongoing rumors that it's leaving the hardware space. And I'm going to read again verbatim right from the article, folks. In a new Xbox rumor started this weekend that's now blown out of proportion, as usual, late into the evening on Saturday, Redditors flocked to the Xbox subreddit as someone claimed that their local Target had begun removing the Xbox section from their store. Then, various blog sites who seem oddly invested in the concept of, quote, Xbox dying ran with the headlines based on said anonymous reports, likely buoyed by the fact that Costco recently had reduced its Xbox offering, compounding expectations of a wider retail route. The article goes on to say this: from the post spawned a number of stories where the other Redditors began sharing that they have seen stock within their local Targets or Walmart stores for months. Counter reports came from various sources, like shout out to Destin Legary, who actually had this to say. Destin goes on to say, and I have his post that I'm going to add to the show notes. It says, I just called my local Walmart to ask if they were discontinuing or pulling Xbox stock. They said, at least to my knowledge, I haven't heard anything about that, like clearing inventory or having like that, or about discontinuing anything. They also still said that they have a number of items in stock. Now, if you read the second tweet from Destin, he also reconfirmed that whoever he spoke to in Target said that they hadn't gotten a shipment in a while, but they were expecting a new shipment according to the documents that they had in front of them on the 19th of November. Now that kind of, that's kind of rolling into, I would imagine, and not November, October. So the 19th of October is this week. They're expecting a shipment. So that means that they are still partnered. Now, interestingly enough there, Crispy, isn't it hilarious that in the last couple of weeks, even though Xbox has been doing great with their first party, they've been adding a ridiculous amount of games to Xbox Game Pass. They have four first party games coming out in the next 45 plus days, more than Sony has done in 2 years. They're doing in less than 2 months. And somehow, some way, Xbox or Microsoft proper has to drop a presser. And I have that presser in front of me. It goes on, and it's simple, folks. It's a simplistic, I wish it was a little bit more, but I don't think it needed to be. It says this. Now, again, this is a Microsoft spokesperson that, remember, if you couple of the last weekend, they had to come out and say, and it says this, and again, shout out to JB Shy on Twitter. He says, for those in the back, Target and Walmart, among other retailers, remain committed partners for Xbox consoles, accessories, and games. End quote. Simple, but I think enough to give anyone doubt the answers that they're looking for. Crispy, let's try and make sense of this Xbox negativity, or hashtag Xbox tax.
Well, it's nice to have a little bit of more knowledge than most people about this, being a retail manager. Let's think about it for a second. A lot of people will blame whatever they want to blame. They're coming out of this multiple different ways. The fact is that there could be a fact that we've already seen Walmart say they're going to reduce a lot of their physical stuff. Target's probably just not announcing it. And also, these things are physical, not just, a code, because I'm sure there's probably code cards sitting there. You got to think that maybe they're reducing stock because they're worried about these tariffs. Now, this is one of those instances where it could be logical. There's also, we're going into the holidays, and a lot of these companies like to re-merchandise their areas. So hypothetically, if one thing's going to sell more than the other, they might expand or contract. That said, that doesn't mean that they're going to continually have these things come into stock until they redo that said section. I do it all the time in my meat case. Okay, as we get into colder weather, we reduce sizes on grilling stuff, and we increase sizes on like stewing beef, for example. And at that point in time, there may be out of stocks and other such things. If you're going to go and look at that and say that, oh, there's nothing there, where's the narrative that nothing there doesn't mean that they're selling more? You know what I mean? It's just, you can't look at a retail space and know exactly what's going to transpire. You could walk in that place a week later and the entire electronics section looks totally different. And that's where I say, if they're going to reduce stock in something, it's going to be a company that has a great, member service as Game Pass. And when you look at it, they keep, saying, hey, like these Bethesda games, oh, we're releasing a physical version. We're releasing a physical version. Why do they keep doing that? Is it so they put it in nowhere? I mean, they're not going to have it anywhere. The narrative has just these like mixed feelings of like, I just hate Xbox, and I walked into my Target that day and it just, it didn't look right. So that's the way it is. And then a lot of them are using that said picture from 2023. I mean, does anybody remember the out of stocks we had during COVID? Does anyone remember that? Because I do. I mean, do you know how hard it was to like have a full case during that time for me? It was ridiculous. I mean, and a prime example is just on Sunday, I get my order in and an entire page is out of stock. So that's like 30 items. So now I have holes all over my case. Does that mean that I'm not carrying them? No, they just didn't get to the warehouse quick enough. These things happen. Okay, so maybe there's some logistics going on with Xbox right now. There's a lot of companies that rent space. You don't know if Sony's technically a vendor and they rent space to sell their product, and Xbox doesn't do that. We don't know all those logistics, because if you go into a grocery store and you're going to go buy Pepsi, guess who stocks that? Not us. The Pepsi company stocks that because they pay for that space. So you have to understand that you don't know what companies are doing that and not. And then they are become prioritized in a way. So all you need is that confirmation of Microsoft, Xbox saying this is not true. Okay. And you could for all you know, in the next couple weeks, go in and your entire electronics section is totally different in a Walmart or Target. So let's not jump to conclusions. And that's what we try not to do here. Sometimes we get it wrong, obviously, but this is one of those times where why would you go into a holiday and completely eliminate storefront sections? It does not make sense. And if they did that, and if it comes out later that this was all true, we're going to hold their feet to the fire. But as of now, they have told you that it's not true.
I mean, you couldn't have made any better sense. I think when you kind of just stop and listen to everything that Crispy just said, this is coming from a retail manager. Now, granted, obviously, meat products are different than video games, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, but business is business. And he brought up a phenomenal bunch of points. I didn't even expect him to go into his background, but thank you for doing that, Crispy, because you did really bring it to a boil. Folks, I have some numbers. I have stats. You know how I feel about this. Evidence-based conversation is my favorite because We can all have our opinions, right? They're like a-holes. We all have them and they all stink, right? So just like that, I'm all about the evidence-based conversation, because even though we're allowed to have difference of opinions and maybe never even agree, hard to argue the actual numbers, because the numbers, ladies and gentlemen, are the facts. So physical games, I have some numbers that are going to blow your mind. So if you are wondering how big the decline is, well, there's been numerous reports where I'm going to read one more specifically, the headline. The decline of physical games is accelerating and it's troubling for the gaming space. That's just one headline. But you want to talk numbers? Okay, let's talk numbers. So since 2021, if you want to know the how bad physical games are down, since 2021, we're in 2025. It's a 4-year difference. They're down over 50% across the board in gaming. 50%. Since 2008 and its peak, they're down over 85+% on physical game sales. Pretty crazy. So we already knew this because last year it was announced that Walmart and Target would not be carrying physical games for Xbox. This was widely known, which is why I'm so surprised that you saw numerous publications running with a story. And the worst part of it, Fuzzy, is that they used a picture that was posted by not only Shinobi 602, but a bunch of others, and especially a bunch of other, trolls of the interwebs. And instead of actually doing their groundwork to find out when and where this picture was taken, this picture from 2023 from Reddit of all places that has not been verified, that has not been confirmed, they ran with the stories, once again proving that the hashtag Xbox tax exists, and people, including publications, will take it and run with any bad Xbox news. And when you just take a step back, and I'm not talking about the entire generation since 2020's launch, I'm talking, let's just look at the numbers for this year. Xbox is delivering 2 pieces of new hardware. Yes, they are OEM hardware. They are partnered hardware, but it's Xbox branded. You're not getting me off this square, ladies and gentlemen. It's an Xbox handheld that's coming from Asus. It's co-developed by Xbox. I don't know what more you need, but if you need more, this is not the podcast for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you that right now. If we want to talk about the games, because if I recall very, very, quickly, how often when PlayStation was hitting on all cylinders, Fuzzy, was it about the games, right? Well, Xbox is going to have nearly a dozen games by every size, by every ilk, from first party, dropped into Xbox Game Pass. Now, granted, again, we're still sore and a little aggravated, and even some of us pissed off about an increase in price. And I'm there with you, folks. I'm going to continue to beat the drum. I think it was a mistake. But you cannot argue that Xbox first party is delivering. So if they are delivering on new pieces of hardware that are going to give you the ability to play your games on the go, dock it to your TV if you want, and a lineup that has more games in a 12-month span from January to December than Sony has had nearly 3 years. But somehow, Fuzzy Belvedere, Xbox is dying once again. Let's get your thoughts on this, man.
I've never seen a group of people so set on killing off a brand. It started with the whole, Game Pass price increase, which, yes, rightfully so. We gave them, our pointed thoughts on that. And then it was like, oh, well, they're not making hardware anymore. And they, said, look at what we said with AMD and, reiterated that. And then there was the leak, which I still have my doubts on some of the specs, but there was a leak of the Magnus chip, which is evident that it's going to be for the next Xbox console. And now we're focusing once again on sales. And somebody pointed in a super chat, which I'll let you get to that later. But it no matter what Xbox does, they're always going to be at fault, or they're always going to be in the wrong. It's either the items aren't selling because the shelves are full, or the items are selling and they rather say, oh well, no, they're not on the shelves because they're pulling stock or pulling, from the industry. It's like the funniest thing for me, it's all of the ponies out there, and I'll call them ponies, for the fact that you had Baby Steps, which was claimed to be this great transformational
Game of the
that
year.
that came out like a little less than a month ago, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Nobody's really talking about it. Ghost of Yotai, which is supposed to be their go-to thing. It's another movie game that's first party. Crickets out there. I mean, sure, there are some that was like, oh, it's game of the year, but they rather focus on Xbox being sold out over at Target or what was it, Sam's Club, like a week or so ago, where they were doing clearance, more than likely to make room for the upcoming holiday inventory. They wanted to make sure that, oh, everybody knew that Xbox must be leaving the game because these stores are clearing off their shelves. I don't know. I always look at it as, no matter what Xbox does, they're going to make up a narrative that goes in the opposite direction of what Xbox is actually doing. They have hardware. Is it first party hardware? No, but it's hardware that they've spent the money in marketing and advertising and R&D funding to help produce with Asus, and that's coming out. They have a ton of games that are coming out throughout this year, like Boom said, more in the past 12 months than other first party platforms did in the past couple of years. So I don't know why people are so focused on this. Like, I'll be honest. The only problem I have with Xbox and their hardware right now is the price going up, being that if one of my consoles, God forbid, knock on wood, it ever breaks or has an issue, then the cost to replace that is higher than when I originally bought it. That's my only complaint with them when it comes to hardware right now. Outside of that, I'm not going to a Target or a Best Buy to see how many Xboxes are on the shelf. I have an Xbox already on my TV stand. Why am I going to look to see how many are still left? I'm not buying them as Christmas gifts for people, and I'm not looking for how many PS5s on the shelves. It's also on my TV stand. So I don't know. Even as a gaming enthusiast, I still don't understand some of the behaviors of people. And then as far as Reddit has its pros and cons. I know a few people are like, what are you bad mouthing Reddit about? You all know exactly the parts of Reddit where it's the trolling aspect that you see. And it's not the main part of Reddit. Reddit is usually good as far as for do-it-yourself pointers, tips, or like shortcuts or cheat code type things, as far as stuff that you could either do with electronics or stuff around the house type of thing, or it's way people get some information on upcoming movies, games, and so forth. And it's a variety of different subreddit paths that you can read through and enjoy the info. But then there's the parts that are like Reset Era and all of those real troll like forums where it's like, oh, Xbox is dead. Xbox has been dead for the past 20 years and it has no games, even though it's released 12 games plus this year. No, they don't have any games. But oh well, we're getting the whole slate. Well, how could you get a whole slate of games on the PlayStation platform if they didn't have any games? I don't know. I feel like we're paying attention too much to the, and I hate using this reference, but I gotta call it. We're paying too much attention to the people on the short bus when we should be paying attention to the games. Like, if people are all up in arms about seeing that a Sam's Club is clearing off their shelves of Xboxes, but yet we already have an Xbox, why are we getting all worked up over that? Like, unless we're looking to get that second, Series X or Series S, it shouldn't even be on our radar. It should be, the things that should be on the radar is the fact that Keeper's coming out in a couple of days, or that Outer Worlds 2 is in like a week or so. So it's like, I think that would be the main thing to give airtime to as far as these media outlets. I mean, sure, they might see things like the Xbox not being on shelves, or supposedly the rumor of them pulling product from, retailers, or retailers deciding to give up on selling the product, which I don't know. I just it seems like idiocracy nowadays, where I'm a store and I'm gonna not sell stuff because I don't like money anymore for whatever reason. I just don't understand this concept where, can we see, or can anybody point out, let's say, just for example's sake, a discontinued product where, or not a discontinued product, a product that's still in production where the manufacturer or the retailer just doesn't want to sell it anymore, even though they could get more of them. They don't want to sell it anymore because, well, it's not selling, so they cut the price. Well, the price will help move whatever they have, but I think the last time I've seen it where a retailer has removed something from the shelves, that whether it's selling or not, it comes down to like a recall or a safety, or some sort of issue where it could cause harm to their customers, or it could be a liability. A console, for all intents and purposes, even if they only sell one a month, they're going to sell them. And if the manufacturer chooses to send them more on a PO that they've requested, they'll continue to sell them. I can't see a retailer saying, you know what, the old Switch isn't selling as much as it used to because the Switch 2 is now taking all the sales. We're just going to pull all those from the shelves. It's like, that's not how retail works. And I would think that there was enough people that have shopped over their lifetime that would understand that simple concept, that stores don't typically just pull things off the shelf unless there's a safety concern or something along those lines. But once again, we're giving airtime to the people on the short bus, and they're going to continue to come up with other narratives, like with Xbox doing the response. Next week, it will be something about the Series S again, or it will be about how Phil should retire, or it'll be about how they didn't keep their promise for first party games being exclusive when they acquired Bethesda. Like, it never ends. It's like, for those that are not interested in the Xbox ecosystem, please focus on your own ecosystem, because it's getting to the point where it's laughable that Sony is only coming up with 1 or 2 first party a year. Like, we spent 500 plus on a PS5 for it to collect dust on, from first party. But then again, I guess they also play the multi-plats there, which I understand. I'm not going to play my multi-plats there. I play them on Xbox because in a lot of cases it's play anywhere, so I can play it on PC, carry my save over to console, and vice versa. But it just feels like we're giving too much attention to the nonsense out there. And it seems like it's going to continue the more we pay attention to it. But that's my rambling 2 cents on it.
Well, it's 2 cents that I'm happy to have, brother. And it makes a lot of sense. Again, why pull things off a shelf if they're going to sell? If it's not a safety issue, like Fuzzy was saying, you're not going to get rid of it unless Xbox is leaving the business, which we know they're not. But you know what? Let me add some additional context to the story. And then we're going to move on to the Outer Worlds conversation, because we got a story from Windows Central that gives some insight into how serious Obsidian was in the development process of the Outer Worlds 2, which is releasing later this month, but also who helped them, which is, I think, the biggest and most interesting part of the story. But check this out. So Windows Central themselves did some groundwork investigative, should I say investigative groundwork? That's the way it should have been said. They spoke to a few target employees on their end who discredited the claims of a wider Xbox removal within the company. Oh, well, that's pretty interesting because, wow, that's facts. But here is where it gets even better. According to the story, even the legendary Xbox alumni Larry Major Nelson chimed in, stating that, and this is a quote from Larry, "All I know is I went to a couple of Targets and GameStop stores this week, and I did find Xbox hardware and games for sale. I even did a little investigative work by going to my local Target during an unrelated errand where I stopped by to check on the shelves. And sure enough, everything was there except for the consoles themselves. When I checked on their website, I noticed that Target did not have a single Xbox Series X for sale, and it was made unavailable but multiple Xbox Series S consoles were there for purchase. But Xbox stock does seem to tend to fluctuate heavily as Microsoft seems to manufacture them, particularly to order these days. So again, it goes on to say in the story, the Xbox Series X is regularly sold out as Microsoft seems particularly fearful of creating what they're quoting oversupply situations for whatever reason. Some of that is silicon that is being used to power the Xbox cloud gaming. However, which is another angle likely at play here. So, folks, we have the information. We have it on multiple accounts. And we did have Destin Legary, which again, shout out to Destin for literally taking the time, calling a couple of stores as he's done before, and getting the skinny. And of course, when he reported on it, he actually put out a post where people are now yelling at him because he came up with the actual facts. Folks, this is what we're talking about. This is how you know that I know that if Paris is listening, he's probably shaking his head. And him and I are never, ever going to agree. But I consider that man an extension of my family, like a brother. And we are on two sides of this on the spectrum, and we can meet in the middle. But he's never going to agree with me, and I am never going to agree with him about the Xbox tax. It is real, it is apparent, and it has happened once again. And I'm glad that Xbox did come out, and even though the quote on the presser was very short and to the point, I think that's all it actually needed to be. But look, at the end of the day, folks, Xbox is maybe not selling as many consoles as the Switch 2 or the PS5, and maybe they never will. But they rest assured, their hardware still remains a part of gaming, and they do have new hardware coming this year in the form of the OEM hardware from Asus, which is partnered. There is rumors that we're going to get into potentially tomorrow about the Game Awards actually levying an Xbox OEM announcement. That is something that is a running rumor, right? That's happening supposedly next year. And we know in 2027, ladies and gentlemen, and chat, and of course, panel, that they're going to have potentially not one, but two SKUs, one of which is going to be the big boy underneath the TV, manufactured and produced by Microsoft, and the rumored handheld dockable from Microsoft. So, folks, hardware isn't going anywhere. And yes, have they reduced their sales in regards to physical sales? It's true. That is happening. But physical sales are down across the board, ladies and gentlemen. This is not just an Xbox problem. This is an everyone problem. But look, let me catch up on Super Chats. We have 4 of them here. And then we'll get into the Outer Worlds 2 story from Windows Central. Why so serious? Oh, I see that you changed your icon. That's actually pretty cool. Welcome and thank you so much for the very generous $5 super chat. Why so serious goes on to say, store full of Xbox. They are not selling. Empty shelves. They are no longer stocking Xbox. I mean, look, that's. I actually saw someone actually post that. I don't know who it was. It might have been Stallion83, where if there are Xbox consoles on the shelves, bad. No consoles on the shelves, bad. This is what I'm talking about. There is no middle ground or happy medium with the Xbox brand. They are dying on the vine. They don't belong in the industry, but yet some of the most and biggest selling games on somewhere like, I don't know, PlayStation 5 are Xbox first-party games, ladies and gentlemen, not even their own games. But they don't want Xbox in the industry. Very interesting. Ultraman simply says, hey, fellas, and well, hey to you, brother. Thank you very much for the very generous $5 super chat. Ultraman, great to see you here, brother, and thank you so much for the generosity. We also have Scott Gamer Dude that not only drops a $5 super chat. So Scott goes on to say, hey, Boom and panel, good morning. Just curious, are you going to make a video of you using the ROG Ally in the new full screen mode? Yes, I am, as a matter of fact. I'm going to do an unboxing. When I get it, I'm going to show everything that I bought. I bought everything. I bought the docking station. I bought the Asus controller for it, as well as, of course, the console. And I'm picking everything up on I think it's Friday. I think I'm picking it up. Yeah, I have to go pick up the controller. The controller's ready to pick up it, and the controller's dope looking. Did I really need another controller? No, but I went full board on this. I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to go, I'm going to go all the way. I put it on my Best Buy card, and I'll pay it off in time. It's fine. So thank you so much for the generous $5 super chat. But Scott, thank you very much for gifting 5 Double Barrel Gaming memberships. That's very generous of you. We super appreciate that, brother. That's right, folks. If you did get a channel membership from Scott Gamer Dude, please thank him in the chat. But gentlemen, we got to get into this Outer World story. Now, this again, one of my favorite writers over at Windows Central. And I actually thought this was Jez Corden, but it wasn't. Jez Corden was promoting it. It was written, ladies and gentlemen, by Samuel Tolbert. And I like Samuel's work a lot. He obviously is a writer and journalist for WindowsCentral.com. And he goes on to say in the header, the Outer Worlds 2 directors tapped Ninja Theory and other Xbox studios to shape the future of their games. This is pretty interesting. So Obsidian's Brandon Alder and Matt Singh reveal how cross-studio collaboration from Ninja Theory's mocap expertise to Double Fine's creative feedback is helping refine the way they make games. And here's where it gets even more interesting. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about this. They even reached out for help on The Outer Worlds 2 with Kojima Productions, which is incredibly interesting. Now, reading from the story directly, a flurry of Xbox first-party games is launching over the next few weeks, including yet another title from Obsidian Entertainment with The Outer Worlds 2. Ahead of the game's launch, we got some details on what the game's directors are up to and how they're working with other Xbox studios, not just on this game, but on some of their future unannounced projects as well. Speaking with Luke Lore on the Xbox expansion pass. Shout out to Luke putting in the work and getting the big names here. He says Obsidian Entertainment game director Brandon Alder and Matt Singh discussed how they are encouraged to collaborate and take advantage of feedback from other Xbox teams. And here's a quote. Matt just recently reached out to Ninja Theory because we're very curious about their mocap and performance capture, how their entire process works, Alder explains. And it goes into, it has a quote here. It's definitely one of the benefits of being in that Xbox umbrella now. We're encouraged to reach out to different studios and talk to them. And that was, of course, Matt Singh, Obsidian Entertainment game director. But here are some additional quotes, Crispy Bomb. They were, again, this is the quote, folks. They were really great with us. We were able to get lots of information about the process they go through when doing conversations or cinematics, and what kind of stuff we can incorporate into our future games when we are working on those kinds of things as well. It goes on to say, it's definitely one of the benefits of being in that Xbox umbrella. Now we're encouraged to reach out to different studios and talk to them as we see fit. That open communication, I think, is brilliant. I think when you look at specifically the coalition, I think, is when you take a real big step back, Crispy, and of course that's your forte, they really are the catalyst of what's going on at Xbox Game Studios. You got to remember, many, many years ago, before they had as many studios as they had, every studio was head down working on their game with their people, and that's the extent of it. And then we saw a change. And I really do think, like I said seconds ago, the catalyst for that change is the coalition, because as you know, the coalition does have a team that goes around and helps studios that are working on what? The Unreal Engine. More specifically, the Unreal Engine 5. And hearing this story from Windows Central from Samuel Tolbert really should get anyone that is an Xbox fan or an Xbox Games Studio fan excited for the potential that when you are playing a game, this game is going to be by potentially one of your favorite developers, but it's also going to have help on the back end from some of your other favorite developers. I'm super stoked to hear about this. Let's get your thoughts on the fact that they even tapped Kojima Productions, man. That is incredible.
Yeah, that was a surprise out of anything. I mean, I think, and boo me for bringing it up, but I think Redfall is the reason why this is all like
No,
transpiring
that's a
much
great point, dude.
quicker.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Phil in that interview said I should have brought in the A team, and he meant at the time probably mostly of the coalition, but I think now as these games have dropped and like Ninja Theory having such success with Hellblade 2 and all these other things, they can go and say, hey, like, the encouragement to collab is there because we don't want to have another Redfall. You know what I mean? And I think it's important to learn from your mistakes. And I think all the games that have come out after that have been much, much better. So if you really just look at that, but to have, we haven't really had full on confirmation. We've had little tidbits here and there, but they really went into it this time. And I think it's because they're trying to tell you, like, we're going to take the best of the best from these studios that we feel we can use those said even technologies like, Ninja Theory has. So I think as time goes on, we're going to see more and more collaboration and probably hear more and more about it. And, my excitement for Outer Worlds 2 is incredible because, I can also play in third person, which I love to do. So it's an exciting time. And I think you're going to see just quality after quality games, and they could be small and they could be large. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to use each other in a collaborative way, and it's going to be more frequent and more often. And I think it's really going to up the ante of the quality of the product. And personally, I believe that it's also going to help build morale throughout all these different teams and really understand that they all have like a common place, just build a great game, and they can really lean on each other for it. So I think it's very exciting.
You know what's interesting? I did a search, and this was reported a couple of months ago, Fuzzy Belvedere, where Xbox is pushing its studios to collaborate more closely, unify under a single fiscal strategy, to share technology to improve efficiency and a higher quality of its games. And I think that is just phenomenal. But I want to read a little bit more from this article. According to Samuel Tolbert, it says the process goes both ways with Singh, adding that the team has been encouraged not only to just garner advice, but to give it as well. And then this is a quote from the director. Brandon and I went to talk with Double Fine Production CEO Tim Schafer and see if we can offer any kind of feedback on some of the stuff that they're working on. Adding that because we were in Japan recently, we got an opportunity to sit down and talk with Kojima Productions a little bit. And again, I'd love to hear these kind of stories. So Samuel closes out the article by saying, back in June, when I went hands-on with The Outer Worlds 2, Adler mentioned how the teams approached Halo Studios, formerly 343 Industries, for a list of ways to improve on the gunplay for Outer Worlds 2, something Adler reiterates in the latest interview. Now, again, this is Samuel saying this. Personally, I've always liked hearing these kinds of details, learning how teams can build on with each other upon providing a second look or feedback in the way that they make their games. And this is something that is happening more often than not. Buzz, let's get your thoughts on this, brother.
Well, it's a great thing to see the camaraderie between the teams within their first party as well as ones that they've partnered with as far as for Xbox Studios for other developers outside of their fold. Having them where they can collaborate, share technologies, or just work together on, even if it's not a collab per se specifically for the game, but making it easier in this industry as far as working on these new technologies, which a lot of people have given Xbox, smoke for their, studio management as well as, the tools and things like that. A team like Kojima Productions, they're probably one of the few teams outside of first party that are, pretty proficient when it comes to using Xbox tools. We'll see when OD's released, but the approach as far as how their dev kits work, I know it was an interesting thing for Kojima working with that set, and I think he had made posts about that before on the tech that's involved in that, outside of the whole not Decima engine, is it Decima engine that he uses from Sony, but as far as the hardware, he's had nothing but good things to say in the past. So having one of first party's teams work with somebody that has a very creative vision on a lot of their games and whatnot could add some interesting outlooks within that we could see in Outer Worlds 2. Like, I think some of the big things that some people may have joked about with Outer Worlds 2 or Outer Worlds 1 was the stealth wasn't always as refined as they would probably like. And then some of the gameplay reveals that they did like a month or two ago, showing how the stealth works, where you can sneak past the robots or some of the cameras and security systems and things. Maybe they've picked up some pointers from Kojima in regards to his games, not heavily relying, but having a good element of stealth involved in them. So, seeing those types of collaborations or just them, even if it's just talking about how the process works as far as building these games, it's awesome to see. But also, we've always heard how Coalition is kind of like the go-to team when it comes to Unreal Engine, which I don't know if anybody's noticed, but a lot of Xbox games use the Unreal Engine. So having a in-house expert and then having almost like a secondary in-house expert with Ninja Theory, seeing how they were working greatly with the mocap and the metahuman tech that's usable within the Unreal Engine 5 engine. It goes to show that at least Xbox is listening to some of the things that we may have said in the previous generation that we would like to see more of, as far as teams working together and refining their craft. And I think we're now witnessing it with a lot of the games that are coming out from their first party studios. It was something that was always touted as far as being, well, PlayStation, they build from within and all of their teams collaborate, and that's why all of their games are this tier of quality. And now we see that same type of measure when it comes to Xbox first party studios. But with them working with studios outside, I think that's a great thing as far as getting more input, sharing more knowledge, and maybe learning some different techniques, out of box thinking as far as approaches on different development things. And I can't wait to see what it pans out to be in Outer Worlds 2. But overall, I'm looking forward to this game. Love the first game. Hoping that there's one of those like shortcut endings as well, like what they had in the first one, kind of like what you can do in like what is that? I forget the other thing that was like Far Cry. Like Far Cry, you always had like the quick ending and then the played ending. I'm hoping we have another like quick ending with Outer Worlds 2, and then the one that's like the 20-hour, 40-hour, 60-hour ending that you can work towards type of thing. But really looking forward to that game.
Well, I mean, listen, again, it's releasing this month. And you know what's interesting, guys? I kind of just want to I have a bit of a back end conversation. I don't really think people are giving Obsidian Entertainment its just due. And again, this is just my personal opinion. If chat, by all means, throw yours in there as well. But by the end of the month, they will have quietly released 3 major first party games this year. Avowed is still my game of the year. I'm waiting for the New Game Plus update. I'm hoping that they're going to announce some additional content, and I'm talking about maybe an expansion, because they didn't plan for it, right? So I hope that there might be some something in the works, because obviously it's going to be a franchise moving forward. I loved every second of it. I played it for probably around 50 plus hours, and I want to jump back into it. What's interesting is what makes me want to jump into it again isn't because it's I want to play the game again. I want to play the game from Jamie Moran's perspective, because every time I've seen Jamie Moran's gameplay, it's always been in third person, and it's always been a melee character. See, I played in first person and I used all magic. And watching Jamie's gameplay, you've heard me say this before, I'm like, my God, that looks so much fun. Did I play this game wrong? And that's why Avowed is special. That is why Avowed is still my game of the year, because I am going to roll a new character and I want to play that new character from a third person perspective, but I want to go melee rather than magic because it looked like a totally different experience. But then, of course, you bring in Grounded 2, right? Now, yes, it's in preview, but everyone that has played it, not for me, I'll happily admit it, not a game that I'm going to play, but everyone that I've seen playing it has had some incredible stories about why it's even better than the original. And then, of course, you have the Outer Worlds 2 releasing. We've seen tons of preview. The game looks leaps and bounds better than one. There's no doubt about it. And hearing now, Fuzzy and Crispy, that they've sought help and advice from other big name studios. Again, I just don't think they're getting enough credit that when the year is done, Crispy, they're going to have released 3 freaking games, and every one of their games will have hit. Look at your final thoughts on that.
It's insane because, I played Grounded 1. It's not my jam, so I know I didn't really, wasn't really interested in it. But like for them to go right into Grounded 2 so quickly and then have Avowed already there and then Outer Worlds 2, it's like they could bang out an RPG and a quality RPG pretty darn quick. So imagine if they take more time for, because if you really think about it, you got 2, so maybe you get an Avowed 2, and then hopefully they're going on to something else, because it seems like the team is just like running in all cylinders right now, and it's just ready to like, okay, we could bang out, in 2 years we'll have another 2 or 3 games from Obsidian, because they just like they joined and it's like everything opened up. And it's one of those rare things, like, we always give Microsoft a bunch of hate, but it's like that was just the best purchase. And in realism, I feel like the way Obsidian's developing, they are completely happy and ready just to deliver more. And I mean, it's just crazy. And I mean, whatever award can be given to a developer, they should absolutely have all of them. So that's really my thought.
And it's a great one. Fuzzy, I just did a search and I knew that I had this confirmed because I had it in my notes, but I wanted to reconfirm it. So Obsidian Entertainment is currently working on, at least it says, 3 games: The Outer Worlds 2, which is releasing later this month, Grounded 2, which is in preview, and another unannounced project. I mean, that's 4 games, bro. Like, again, this is... Some people are going to get angry. I know the virtual tomatoes are coming for me. I've said this before. One of my favorite studios on Sony's side of things, and I think a studio that is underappreciated by its fan base, that's Insomniac Games.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they have done such an absolutely amazing job carrying the PlayStation banner. They have released game after game after game. And granted, they have become like the Marvel churning IP studio. But you got to admit, like, I don't know about you fine folks, Wolverine looked a lot better than the leaked footage. And I am there day freaking one. Yeah. But I'd like to take Obsidian and move it to shoulder. Now, there's going to be some people in the chat that think one is better than the other. I don't. I think they both are incredible studios. But I like to compare Obsidian to Sony's Insomniac, because they do carry the companies or the platforms on their shoulders. And a perfect example of that is not only is Avowed out, not only is Grounded 2 out and doing very well, you have The Outer Worlds 2 releasing later this month, and they have another game in development, which again, your rumor is going to vary. I'm praying and hoping that it is either a remake of Fallout New Vegas or a sequel, which, of course, again, just adding some credence, the guy that worked on New Vegas just recently came back to Obsidian. I'm just saying. So Let's
Yeah,
get your thoughts, man.
yeah, like I consider them in the similar category as far as being able to churn out quality games on a relatively short basis. They are definitely, I wouldn't say they're carrying Xbox though, but they're definitely delivering as far as they're probably one of the most valuable purchases that they've made from that 2019 on type of time frame. I mean, well, outside of pure money of ABK itself, but for an individual studio, they have gotten their workflow and their uh, order of operation down pat to the point where they have a game in the works. One is just wrapping up, and they already have like another one that's in like early prototype or early development, and they constantly do that workflow to the point where they're able to churn these things out relatively quick, even though they may have a 5-year dev cycle, but they've stacked their workflow so there's always something going on, whether it's that they're broken up into 2 or 3 teams or 4 teams or however many. But yeah, I'm curious to see if it is something in the Fallout universe that they're working on next. There is still Stormlands that was supposed to be a launch title that they were going to do for Xbox in the Xbox One generation that I would love to see. But they've been just so well with all of the games that they produce, and they listen to the fan feedback. Although I know some people are like, yeah, I hope some of the media hate that they got for Avowed, gets ignored by Xbox, so that way they make a sequel that follows a similar tradition, just maybe expand on the universe or expand on the companions and things like that. But like when you look at like from Grounded to Grounded 2, one of the biggest things that I would say, and I'm like Crispy, it's not my particular favorite game, but it is fun with friends, is that they now have mounts, or you're able to ride the bugs and have that carry you through like certain areas and things. That was huge, and the fact that they can fight alongside with you against other bugs and things. So they're definitely improving on all of their follow-ups, and I'm looking forward to see what other improvements other than the ones they've shown, because some of the thing that was cool is that some perks had like negative effects, and they've expanded on that with this one, where I know there's one where if you look at the sun a lot, it kind of regenerates your health, but then anytime you aim down scope, you get that like little bit of a solar flare in the lens kind of thing. So you get the positive of being able to regenerate your life and everything, but then you might be blinded when you're trying to snipe enemies and stuff. So I love some of the things that they've added into their RPGs, and I would consider them one of the best as far as the RPG genre in general, up there with a CD Projekt Red even. So I would love to see what they do beyond Outer Worlds 2, whether it's an Avowed 2, whether we finally see Stormlands or some sort of follow-up or sequel to like a Fallout New Vegas type of deal. They're the kings right now as far as productivity, quality, and just being one of the best studios or best acquisitions. Although I still love we are Playground or Playground Games as far as what they've been doing with the Forza Horizon series and what they'll probably contribute going forward for Forza Motorsport. And then with Fable right around the corner, they're like my A and B team. I'm pretty sure Crispy's on the Coalition side, and there's tons of other great studios within Xbox's fold. But yeah, I think Obsidian is one of their top notch ones. It may not be the top in everybody's opinion, but they're definitely in the top 3, I would say, for most Xbox fans.
Well, I mean, again, when you talk about RPGs, it's easy to think and equate Bethesda, right? Like they are a major RPG machine. But when I think shoulder to shoulder in that conversation is Obsidian. I really do. I think that to ignore the fact that they have done so many incredible OG IPs, and that the fact that they're still around and they're still churning out quality RPGs, you got to be a fan. I love RPGs. I love open world RPGs, and there's nothing more exciting than seeing someone like Obsidian just continue to deliver. And they're going to deliver 3 major releases in one 12-month period. That's insane. We haven't seen that in a really long time. And listen, folks, we're going to get ready to get out of here. I did do a poll. I kind of want to talk about the ROG Ally X and S releasing later this week. I did, so we're going to go into the poll, but just want to thank everybody that took the time on their holiday, to come and hang out with us. We have almost 500 people watching live, which is awesome. But let me pull up the poll here now, folks. I did a poll earlier. I think I ran it for about 35 minutes, and it's 142 votes. It says, who is excited AF that the Xbox Ally X and S is releasing this week? And are you a day one buyer? So the choices that I had is, heck yeah, hashtag let's go. And that's sitting at 45%. And then there is the no, it's too expensive. That is at 48%. And I just for fun, I threw in the it's not an Xbox handheld in all caps, for the trolls of the interwebs. And that is leading at 7%. So it does look like nearly half of the people here, at least, that voted are not buying it. And it could be because of price. Now, granted, this thing is expensive, folks. The cheaper one is, you heard Fuzzy talk about it. It is a nice piece of hardware for the price. It would have been great to see it $100 cheaper, sure, but it is not bad for the 600. The $1,000 one, again, I'm getting it because I'm not pulling $1,000 out of the house savings to go buy it. I opened up a Best Buy card. You've heard me say this before, specifically for this reason, and it's only going to be used for this. Once I'm done paying off this thing, it's just going to sit in a drawer because I don't really buy a lot from Best Buy, but I definitely wanted to be a part of this. And the channel is way too small to get one for a quote unquote review. We are way too small for that. Even though it'd have been nice, I bought everything myself, which is perfectly fine. But Crispy, let's get your thoughts on the poll, man. And again, the world is the world, man. It's not a favorable world to spending $1,000 at start for your handheld. And if you're like me and you kind of want everything with it, like the case is $70. The docking station for it that you can hook it up to your TV is $140. The controller itself is $100. Again, tariffs, folks. That's why these things are so bloody expensive. And I honestly would not be buying this unless there was a way for me to pay it off and use a card. And that's exactly what I'm doing. Let's get your thoughts on the poll. Are you surprised that over 48% of people that voted are not getting it and they're touting the price?
I was a no vote. Yeah, it's like, don't get me wrong. I'm one of those people like, sure, I could buy it, but no, I don't think I'm going to use it enough right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, work schedule and all these other things. And, hey, if you're one of those people that you can use that and trust that you could have it on your lunch break, because I don't trust people enough, I guess, and I'll just leave it at that. And I would not bring such said thing to work to play on lunch or something like that. And generally, I'm home most of the time. So, maybe once in a while I would, if I was going on more vacations, I should say, maybe I would think about it a little bit more. But as of now, I was definitely, I was one of the 48%. And hey, more power to you. If you got the money for it, you want it right immediately. It's probably going to be worth more in the end. It'll probably be a good investment anyway, the way things are going. But yeah, just hoping that maybe I find a use for it down the road. But right now, I just don't see it.
I mean, it makes sense. Again, it's very expensive purchase. It just really is. And again, I would not be pulling this out of the house fund. But I have means that are going to allow me to pay $100 a month for 12 months, and this whole thing is paid off, and that's awesome. That's the way I'm going to do it. It would have been nice, Xbox, if you're listening, to have an email saying, "Hey, here's your shipping information," but we are way too small for that, so it's fine. But yeah, I know someone's saying that you can connect the Xbox controller to it. Yeah, I know. I have 45 of them. It's the amount of controllers I have is to the point of egregious. But I wanted it. It's part of the package. I'm kind of an all-in kind of a guy. Anybody in the chat like that? Like, I buy everything. I know it's probably silly. Do I really need another controller? Do I need a ROG produced controller when I have 45 plus Xbox Series controllers? The answer is no, but I wanted it anyway. So, there you go. But Fuzzy Belvedere, let's get your thoughts on the poll. Again, it's not a
Yeah.
big topic. It's a closing topic for the show, but
Mhm.
kind of does represent what's going on in the world. And right now, people do not have the I don't want to say it's wastable,
Yeah.
the spendable extra money that they might have had 5 years ago.
And to some extent, I don't blame them. I would say it's probably a safer bet or a better bet to kind of wait on the sidelines, hear honest feedback from those that have it in hand. I think that would be a better selling feature. Like, I was one that was not really into handhelds until I got my Steam Deck, and it's changed how I play certain games. Like, a lot of these smaller indie games or like side scroll games, like ones that are more like the classic style, or even the roguelikes as well as the Metrovanias and things like that, for me, feel perfect on these handhelds. So right now, only because I've spent way too much money on filming related stuff for upcoming filming stuff that me and the wife are doing, I have to wait until I get everything paid off, which should be by the beginning of November. But all in all, I'm going to wind up either picking up the one in white to replace my Steam Deck, or I might wind up picking up the X. Now, if I wind up picking up the X, then I'm not going to wind up getting the lesser under the TV console when Xbox does it, unless that one gets traded in for an official Xbox handheld. But it's on the buy list, just not at the minute because, like I said, way too much stuff on cameras and lighting and audio and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say wait for honest reviews. These handhelds are for those that have played like the old small handhelds from Nintendo that were like, an LCD screen where you just had like, it would almost look like ink color kind of things. If you enjoyed those as a kid, you'll definitely have that nostalgia feel and probably love these handhelds as well. And the fact that, and I know Nintendo has its own first party stuff. For me, as a Switch 2 owner, if I had the choice between a handheld and a Switch, because I'm not necessarily the biggest Nintendo fan, I would take the handheld 10 times out of 10. I would have not even wasted money on the Switch. But that's just me.
I mean, listen, it's fair point. Like I said, I have the Switch 2. I buy a lot of games for it. I love it. I love it. And again, most of the time, when I say I'm playing docked, it's different than the dock that it comes with, because I have a third party dock that it sits in where you can see the screen. That's how actually I play, because Mrs. Boom and I play Animal Crossing together, and me and Tyler play, a ridiculous amount of games when he stays over. So he gets the view from the TV. I get the view from the handheld, and that's fine. My eyes aren't that bad at 55, but again, I love handhelds. And I actually cannot wait to use this thing, especially because it's going to be a very dedicated Xbox-like experience where it's going to have a UI that's very similar. It's not the same, folks. It is not the same. But I will break that down in a video that I'm going to do. I'm going to do a hands-on with it, showing me play some games, record it, throw it up on the socials, throw it up on the YouTube channel. I will eventually do a review on it, but I'm also going to do an unboxing as well. So look forward to that. Thank you so much for everyone's interest in there. But look, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here on a Manic Monday. Hopefully, you enjoyed the conversation. A big thank you to Fuzzy and Crispy for both being here. A big thank you to you fine folks for hanging out with us for about an hour and 15 minutes. We definitely appreciate it. And tomorrow, folks, we got a lot to get into. Jez Corden let something slip where I think he might have did it accidentally on purpose, where he talked about a January direct where we would get some additional or some new information on Fable. And I had said this already, folks, so I'm going to take full credit for saying it. And I put it out to the ether where I believed come January, you were going to get a direct, and it was going to focus on not only Fable, which is releasing next year, but Forza Horizon 6 as well. So you get a double dosing, if you will, of Playground games and maybe something else on the back end. Again, it's usually the way they start off every year. It's been a great way for them to show off what's happening that particular year and even some surprises. We're going to get into that, as well as some new information on the Halo Championships. I know that Rebs Gaming had some thoughts and some theories. We're going to get into why I personally think some of the people that were former 343 studio, even Bungie personnel have left the studio. I don't necessarily think that it's all bad, folks. I'm gonna break down why. Now, granted, they did lose some heavy hitters in regard to their art department, and I think that out of the list that Rebs Gaming showed off, there was, I think, like maybe 10. There was one person left. Folks, I don't always think someone leaving a studio is a bad thing, especially when we've heard mismanagement used when it comes to talking about 343 Industries for years. So I don't know if they were a part of the problem and that's why they left, or they were not happy with the direction of the games with plural, because there's multiple games that they're going to show off. We'll get into all of that tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on the new episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. But let's get everyone out of here. Crispy Bomb, sell the brand. Where can people tune in to find you on other podcasts? More importantly, where could people follow you on the socials for the crispy truth and the additive of having receipts in tow?
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Shout out to the chat at Crispy Bomb on X, Crispy Bomb 28, Xbox Live, and I believe I could join Friday, so we'll see you then.
Nice. We're looking forward to it, brother. Again, this week is early. We don't know what's going to happen, but I have a bunch of stories that I'm working on. I've already written tomorrow's show. I just have to do the thumbnail for it. I'll be doing that later this afternoon. But yeah, we're going to have a full show of a full week of shows. And on top of that, we have hardware that is releasing along with a bunch of really awesome games as well. Fuzzy Belvedere, let's sell the brand of the Mrs. podcast, Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, Friday evenings, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, because it's Shocktober, if you will, I would imagine that you guys have a lot going on, not only personally with film, but you also have, of course, going to be talking about some big time film actually on the podcast. Sell the brand, brother. Where can people subscribe and, more importantly, follow you guys on social media?
Sorry about being on the mute. As always, I love doing this podcast with you, Boom, and you as well, Crispy. Always love talking about the industry and interacting with the chat about, what games we're looking forward to, hardware that we might be looking forward to, and just in general, everything to do with gaming. And Xbox primarily, as I am more of an Xbox-centric person, but all in all, love gaming and encourage everyone tackle that backlog. There's enough games out there to keep you busy, so hopefully for those that are still subscribed or not subscribed to Game Pass, I'm pretty sure you have stuff to play. Have at it. Post pictures, videos, get involved in social media as far as talking about the games as opposed to some of the side noise and stuff. But as always, if you want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere. You'll be able to find me. I put the link in the chat for my wife's podcast or her channel for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. This Friday, I believe the movie is called Ziam. And this was because of Fun Speculation and a few others on the podcast from Thursday suggested, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there was a zombie movie with Kung Fu? Well, we were able to find one. It looks actually pretty cool. And we're going to be talking about that on Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come hang out with us if you're into zombie movies or if you're into Kung Fu flicks or combinations of both. We'll have a lot to talk about. And other than that, just be safe out there, have fun, and look forward to seeing everybody here Friday morning, 10 a.m. for Breakfast with Boom. See you then.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, and chat, for being here. Big thank you to all of the super chats, all of the gifted subs, and the channel memberships that support this the channel behind the scenes. Mrs. Boom and I are greatly appreciative of that support. And of course, we're going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, one day will be important to you, and that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids, and he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.